Hello and welcome to Politics War Room with James Carville, and I'm Al Hunt. This week, our guest is the ranking Democrat on the House Budget Committee and an expert on what's going to happen with this government funding and shutdown, Pennsylvania Congressman Brendan Boyle. Now remember, we love taking your questions, so write to politicswarroom@gmail.com for next week's show. We'll get to as many as we can, but don't forget to tell us where you're from. You also can get text updates about what's next for Politicon and Politics War Room by signing up at Politicon.com. Tell your friends about us and remind them to subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And please check out the links to our sponsors, Smalls, Miracle Made, and Naked Wines in our episode show notes. We thank you for supporting these sponsors because it really helps make this podcast happen. The scenes of the last few days, I never thought I would see them. Masked ICE agents rappelling from a helicopter in a Chicago building at 1 a.m., joining those barging in on the ground, knocking down doors, throwing kids and tenants out of bed and out on the street, zip tying even children. One ICE agent was overheard by a witness who was there as saying, "Fuck the children," grabbing two men in Cicero, Illinois, out of a bakery, roughing up a Chicago politician. These are scenes that more resemble Berlin in the 1930s or the Soviet or Russia today than America. You know, Trump's plans, I think, are very simple. My thoughts were confirmed by a typically insightful Tom Edsall New York Times column. This is a rehearsal for the midterm elections. If Trump thinks there's any danger he'll lose, he's going to send in federal forces to man ballot boxes, intimidate voters, declare the Insurrection Act. You know, in short, what Trump wants, he clearly wants this, is a civil war. And the more it's about race, the better it is. This, I think, is as outrageous as any act of a president I've ever seen. There are a few occasions when sending federal troops into a city are justified. If the governor requests that his National Guard be federalized, if we're invaded, or if local authorities are unable to enforce the law. None of those conditions exist today. They existed, for instance, in Little Rock, 70 years ago when Eisenhower sent the 101st Airborne and nationalized the Arkansas National Guard to protect children who were integrating the schools that the governor wouldn't protect. None of these conditions, as I say, are present, as the Trump-appointed judge wrote in blocking his efforts to take over Portland. And I have two conflicting thoughts in this. I want to see what you think. I really do. I fear the Republican Supreme Court may well let him get away with most anything. But I also hope and believe that most Americans really are going to turn against and even be repulsed by a thuggish police state.
Well, it's pretty clear people are repulsed by it. I mean, there's pretty much data out. And it shows only the hardcore Trump people like this idea of invading American cities. The only thing that I would say, it's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse. And he does something and we go, oh, my God, can you believe he did this? And at some point, we're going to have to just tell ourselves, yes, I can believe that he did this, and I can try as hard as I can to imagine when he's going to do that. I think they're exactly right. I think Edsall is right. I actually think J.B. Pritzker's right. I think he's suffering from some, I don't know if it's dementia, but he's suffering from some mental breakdown. And these things get progressively worse. I mean, they never get better. They never stay the same. And whatever is causing this paranoia and this megalomania and all of the other stuff that you see and manifest itself is only going to get worse. He is going to try. We know that. We've been saying on this program. It's pretty clear that this thing is starting to unravel. His polling numbers are starting to weaken. My own view is the Democrats are winning this whole budget, health and insurance extensions. They're not just winning; they're winning big time. And they're trying to figure an exit ramp out. I pretty sure they're gonna lose in Virginia and New Jersey, and it's going to set off a further stampede. In the last couple of days, actually, Democrats have been as much their buffoonery as the Democratic competence been pretty good. Now, I think that I don't think people are ready to adjust to the change in the political climate that's coming. He will adjust by getting crazier. That we know.
Yeah, and doing anything it takes. And as I say, he actively wants a civil war. I
He
mean,
definitely wants one.
that's incredible.
And he believes that those chaotic things, that those guardsmen or whoever they are, yanking people out of their homes, he thinks that's distracting people from. And he's got one massive, giant problem, and that is 70% don't approve of the economy. No one thinks he's done anything to combat the cost of living, which was his singular campaign promise. And sometimes I worry that we got to talk about all the crazy things that he's doing. But I think the real political damage, the political diabetes, if you will, or the political high blood pressure that's just sitting there every second of every minute of every hour of every day, causing him unbelievable pain, is the fact that people feel economically insecure in their jobs. And the Fed just came back with a survey that said that people expect inflation to go up and jobless numbers to go up. So I think so. We're sitting here as commentators saying, how do you not react to invading cities? By the same token, he thinks that is certainly better for him than you thinking about what prices are at the supermarket. So
Yeah.
I don't know the answer. I really don't. But
Well, I don't think it's going to work. You know, inexplicably, I told you this. I said I didn't know why the hell I did it. I watched 4.5 hours of Attorney General Pam Bondi testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee. It was a masterful performance of duplicity, dishonesty, insults, and invective. She didn't want to or couldn't answer questions about the Justice Department's actions, to put it charitably. Why are they covering up some information about sexual predator Jeffrey Epstein? Why did they drop a case of now border czar Tom Homan taking 50 grand in a grocery bag from FBI undercover agents last year, promising that he'd get contracts if Trump is elected? What happened to that money? I mean, James, that's federal money. And we have she wouldn't tell us what she knew about it. She wouldn't tell us if she was involved in dropping the case. She wouldn't tell us what happened to the money that Tom Homan took. What role did Bondi play in the Trump-ordered indictment of former FBI Director James Comey? Won't tell us. What was her involvement in firing the FBI and national security agents? She wouldn't answer any of that. Instead, she insulted Democratic senators, and the Republican lapdogs just took it, and tried to change the subject to Biden's misdeeds, which is sort of like comparing jaywalking to assault and battery or, murder.
okay, she goes in there. First of all, they have pictures and notes. Somebody said, when you get in there, you say this.
Right.
You don't ever answer that question. You attack them. They gave them an attack line for any of the Democrats. All right. It's not going to change. And by the way, she, in her mind, thinks she did great. And she is being told by the only person that she cares about that she was just stunningly good. They were high-fiving her in the West Wing.
Well, that's right. The two people that she reports to, her handlers, are Stephen Miller and Donald Trump. And they were ecstatic last night.
Look, to people that watch this, it's the Attorney General of the United States, August high position that's been held by, this person or that person, done this and that and everything else. And she has nothing but contempt for these senators. She expresses nothing. Of course, those Republican senators had to sit there and watch her berate these Democratic senators, and of course they couldn't say anything. It was a tutorial in changing the subject, being rude. She's not very smart, and she knows she's not very smart. All right. And that just leads her to be more boisterous, more following orders, more just going off the four corners of a page that she has in front of her, telling her what to say. We're never going to get anything different, ever.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You know, I remember, I'm old enough to have been here when Nixon's attorney general was John Mitchell, who was deservingly indicted and sent to prison. But the Bondi regime in only 9 months is worse. It really is worse. Mitchell was smarter, and on occasion he stood up and followed the law. She'll never do that unless Trump tells her to. Highly unlikely. Moreover, there were some very able assistant attorney generals back then. William Ruckelshaus, future Supreme Court Justice Rehnquist, who I didn't agree with, but he certainly was competent and smart. Bondi, as bad as she is surrounded by nothing but hacks. And as we said a moment ago, her handler, she does everything he orders her to do. Certainly does everything Trump orders, but Stephen Miller is really running the Justice Department. And no one would confuse Stephen Miller with William Ruckelshaus.
Okay, so Bondi is putting, because she doesn't know the law. That's why she's in there.
Right.
She is stupid. They know she's stupid. She knows she's stupid. And that's part of the whole thing. They don't want anyone that has any kind, well, the law, it doesn't interfere with what she does because she has no fucking idea of what the law is. All right?
Remember she said she was going to prosecute hate speech. And even, some of the right wingers said, wait a minute, wait just a minute. That's, hate speech is not unless it threatens someone. She didn't know. She had no idea.
Had no idea. She has no idea anything. I mean, that's why she's there. That's her chief qualification, to be attorney general. She knows no fucking law. She's totally incompetent. She's totally inarticulate. She can't form thoughts in her mind, and she's the perfect person for them.
Yeah. That's the Department of Justice that we are talking about. I mean, it is just, you mentioned earlier, people sat there. I know I've said this before, but that's where Edward Levy sat, where Robert Jackson, where Robert Kennedy, where Elliot Richardson sat. I mean, it is, she has disgraced that building, that department, and of course,
as if they care.
Yeah, they could care less, right?
Shit. Right. I mean, we're to them, we're about talking in outer space.
Right.
That's why she's there.
No, I think you nailed it. It was a disgraceful performance, and I am sure, as you said, they were high-fiving at the White House last night.
I bet you.
Saying, Pam, baby, you just nailed it.
Today.
Yeah. Oh, God. Our cats deserve the best. How important is giving them high quality, healthy food they actually enjoy, James?
I got into cats a little bit late in life, and when they really react to diet. Right, when they get good, when they're fed well, not only they look better, their coats are much more shinier. It just looks better. Cat nutrition is a big thing. It really is. And,
it is.
You just want to do the best, and you get attached to these cats, as I've sort of become, and you just want them to have the best. It's a kind of normal thing.
Yeah, and which is why we let all of our cat-owning friends and family know as soon as we could about Smalls. That's SMALLS. The cat food most people rely on has questionable ingredients. That's why we are so glad this podcast is sponsored by Smalls, especially for a limited time. You can get 60% off your first order, plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/war room. Now, Smalls cat food has protein-backed recipes made with preservative-free ingredients you'll find in your fridge, all delivered right to your door. That's why Cats.com named Smalls the best overall cat food. Best of all, starting with Smalls is easy. Just share info about your cat's diet, health, and food preferences. Then Smalls will put together a personalized sampler for your cat. Stop picking between random brands at the store. Small has the right food to satisfy any cat, and it's obvious right away. James, I know you noticed a big change in your cat's energy compared to burnout kibble, but don't just listen to us. Small's customer, Elizabeth C., expressed how, quote, her cat was always so with her usual food, but it is now very enthusiastic about Smalls. Really enthusiastic. Her breath is much better, and let's just say that the litter stays fresher too. It even has a great story. Smalls was started back in 2017 by a couple guys home cooking cat food in small batches for their friends. A few short years later, they serve millions of meals to cats across the United States. Plus, Smalls works with the Humane World for Animals, donating over $1 million worth of food through them to help cats. You can even donate at checkout, whether you donate for flea and tick medications or $7 for vaccines, $5 for flea and tick medications. Small even has other cat favorites like amazing treats and snacks for a full feline feast. You can even try it risk-free. So what are you waiting for? Let me ask you, what are you waiting for? Give your cat the food they deserve for a limited time. Because you're a Politics War Room listener, you can get 60% off your first order for a limited time, plus free shipping. That's when you head to smalls.com/war room. One last time, that's 60% off your first order, plus free shipping when you head to smalls.com/war room. The link is also in our show note. Hey, James, there is no one with a better feel for the politics and policy of the government shutdown than Pennsylvania Democrat Brendan Boyle, the ranking Democrat on the House Budget Committee. He is passionate about a number of things, about the defending National Football League champions, the no longer undefeated Philadelphia Eagles, not the Eagles, but the Eagles, his Notre Dame Fighting Irish, who've now won 3 in a row after those first 2 defeats, and he's very passionate about the important role that he plays in Congress. Congressman, the shutdown is now in its second week. I know the polls actually look good for Democrats, but the betting money, I think, today is that Democrats ultimately will concede, that there are already some Senate Democrats who are defecting. And the history of shutdowns has been usually the side that's demanding stuff gives in. Is that going to happen this time?
Well, it's great to be back with you guys. And look, first, as we're roughly a week into this, 8 days into this, we've now had 6 consecutive polls from what I've seen that shows by double-digit margin the American people blame Republicans over Democrats. It has focused attention on the healthcare issue in a way that I don't think was happening before this fight. Even though I've been on here and we've been talking about for months the so-called big beautiful bill, a bill that is now so unpopular even Trump has abandoned that ridiculous name. That said, there was always that 20 to 25% of people that were kind of the last group and the hardest group to reach that now are understanding that healthcare is really at stake for tens of millions of Americans, not just the 15 million who are looking to lose it, but also the tens of millions more who are looking at massive increases in premiums. I mean, in our home state, Al, Pennsylvania, if you're on one of the Obamacare exchanges, an average increase of 82%. That's the kind of increase that we're talking about. So, someone years ago said, get caught trying. Right now, Democrats are getting caught trying to help people. And I think it is a good fight. As long as it's happening, we are winning. And I have to say, even though, I know 6 months ago, Senate Democrats throw in the towel, so far there's no sign of that happening. In fact, The conversation has been, because they've had, what, 5 or 6 votes now. They originally 3 Senate Democrats voted with Republicans. None of the others who have been voting no have switched to vote yes. But there's every indication that Angus King, one of the 3 who voted yes, may flip the other way and vote no, just to finally force Republicans to negotiate. So I feel good about where we are at this moment.
You think you're going to win it then?
I do. I
Eventually.
mean, I think we're winning right now. The fact that Donald Trump in the Oval Office just a day or two ago, when asked, said this shutdown is about health care. I have to thank him for that in-kind contribution to the Democratic National Committee, because even he has conceded this ground. So I do feel good about where we are.
You have, I think, I checked 22,000 federal employees in your district. What are your constituents saying about this?
Well, just yesterday I did right around this time yesterday, I did a rally with them on Independence Mall, was joined by 2 other Philadelphia area Democrats. They're fired up. And, if there's any group that would be applying pressure on this, on us to maybe change tactics or change our approach, it would be federal workers. Well, here you had the main union representing federal workers, the AFGE, rallying with us and pushing for Republicans to finally negotiate with us on this issue. And by the way, I have to say, and not that Mike Johnson has asked me for free advice, I do not understand the logic, either substantively or politically, for Mike Johnson to cancel session last week and then up and cancel session this week. I think it's a horrible look that federal workers are expected to show up for work every day while they're not getting paid. And then Mike Johnson sends his own members home. I don't get that at all.
That's a great message, I think, for Democrats. Look, there are a number of things that you all are asking, but the crux is extending the Obamacare subsidies that are due to expire in December. What do you say to Republicans who say, okay, we'll commit to dealing with those subsidies once the government opens again?
Yeah, look, I mean, if we've learned anything from watching all those Charlie Brown specials or reading Peanuts, Lucy always pulls away the football. Trust but verify, dovi no provi, as Reagan was fond of saying. Let's actually have it in writing, in law. And then let's not forget the other piece of this, which isn't dominating the public conversation as much as healthcare is, but that's rescissions. This is really important. And I even, your podcast is for a politically sophisticated audience, political junkies like me. So I will talk about rescissions here in a way that maybe, I don't talk about as often back home, because most of my constituents are not following a very inside DC baseball debate about rescissions. But it's really important, because how in the world can I, as a member of Congress, vote for something today thinking that I'm getting something out of the deal for my constituents, knowing that literally the very next day, Russ Vogt can say, thank you very much. Everything you just voted for, we are rescinding. Thank you, sucker. See you next time. I don't know how any of us can really sign up for that.
I don't either, and I don't know why the Republicans aren't. Well, I guess they're just scared. They're just scared stiff of Donald Trump's going after him. But,
well, you will, Al, you
go-
will have, and how many times have we said this over the last 9 years? You do have a number of, I'll just speak from my own experience. I've had a number of House Republicans, including those who are on the Appropriations Committee, express their frustration and their opposition to basically this White House taking away Congress's power of the purse. Now, with the exception of Steve Womack from Arkansas, I haven't seen any of them willing to say it in public.
Yeah, tell them to bring it to the floor, and vote on it. That would be a test. Just one final question about the ACA subsidies. Republicans say, yeah, but we want to reform them first. What does that mean to you, Congressman, when Republicans say they want to reform the Obamacare subsidies?
Yeah, I mean, what that means is they want to kill it. This is the crowd that voted 63 times to repeal Obamacare. They came within one thumbs down of from John McCain, the late John McCain. One thumbs down really saved Obamacare, and that's the reason why almost 30 million Americans have health insurance today, and the reason why for so many small businesses, the cost of healthcare as expensive as it is not as expensive as it otherwise would have been. So it's really hard for me to take on faith this crowd that says, oh, no, we just want to reform it. When they're talking about that, hold on to your wallet and hold on to your health care.
James Carville.
So, Congressman, my strong belief is we're winning this fight, and it's not even close. Do people in the caucus understand that? Does your caucus understand that we're in a very advantageous position right now?
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. I got to tell you, the House Democratic Caucus, I don't remember our side ever this united on something. From Jared Golden on one side to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the other, and everywhere in between. And I think that the poll results that have only come back in the last few days has strengthened that resolve. I don't see any reason why we would back down at this point. Frankly, I do see reason why the so-called Republican moderates, who have already shown themselves not to be moderates, but they do have to be concerned, the dozen to 2 dozen of them who are in really tough reelection fights. They have every reason to go to the White House and say, look, President Trump, you need a deal on this. We need a deal. If these healthcare premiums really go through the roof as they're scheduled to do, then actually it's going to be their hide that pays the price this time next year when we have the midterm elections.
So we kind of know come the holiday, let's just say come New Year's Day, the two things: the government is going to be open, and these health insurance subsidies are going to be part of it. They're just not going to leave people with the kind of eye-popping premium increases that they'd be faced with. How do they land this plane? Because we're not going to help them, right? That's pretty clear from where we are. How are they going to do it? How do they get from here to there?
I think part of the reason why, and this is conjecture on my part, but it's educated guess. I think part of the reason why Mike Johnson doesn't want his members around here right now is because of what you saw on social media from Marjorie Taylor Greene already saying she wants to compromise on the healthcare issue. He knows that if his members are around, he has a real internal fight on his hand because the Freedom Caucus hardliners, that crowd is saying absolutely not. Kill the Obamacare subsidies. That's the crowd that their dying wish is to kill Obamacare once and for all. But then he has another group of at least a couple dozen members who don't want to see premiums increase because they know that they could pay the price come next November. So the way Mike Johnson resolves that internal dispute is just to send all of his members home and give them an extended vacation at taxpayer expense.
So a lot of people think, and I might be one of them, that he doesn't call them back in because they're trying to do everything they can to not swear in the new member from Tucson.
That's the other part. Yeah.
Huh?
That's the other part of it. Look, I mean, as soon as he finally relents and swears in this 218th member who would sign the discharge petition on the Epstein files, then suddenly he has to deal with that headache as well. So it's all the more reason why you can actually see, even though it's politically damaging, you can see why it became very convenient for him to just dismiss session. I don't know how long he's going to do this for, though. It's incredible.
Remember what Joe Lewis said, huh?
You can run.
They hide. I mean, they're going to have to bring them back at some point. Do you think Johnson just has to do whatever Trump says? And
that is the easiest question. That is the easiest question to answer. Yeah. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Mike Johnson knows that the moment Donald Trump says, you're done as speaker, he is done. There is no question about it. Mike Johnson's entire speakership rests upon the whims of Donald Trump any given moment on any given day. And Johnson is well aware of that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Before I turn it back to Al, a question I want to go back to the big, beautiful bill, because nobody talks about it. You notice bill as well as anybody. What are 3 things that are in there that people don't realize that if they found out, they would really be outraged? There's got to be.
Well, first, I do think it is worth, and I did a teletown hall last night. It was great. We had some 18,000 constituents on at one point.
Get
And I
out of
wanted
here.
to remind them because it's 3 months ago now that the bill
Wait a minute.
passed.
Stop.
Yeah.
You had 18,000 people, constituents.
18,000 constituents who they weren't necessarily on for the entire hour and 15
Understand.
minutes.
Get
But
in out.
this is a record for us, by the way, because I've been doing these teletown halls for a while. We have never had that many constituents who dialed in to be a part of the town hall. And I reminded them on the so-called big, beautiful bill that is so ugly, even Trump has stopped using that ridiculous term. Let's not forget the centerpiece of that. $5 trillion worth of tax breaks, mostly for millionaires and billionaires, paid for by the biggest cut to healthcare in American history, biggest cut to Medicaid in American history, biggest cut to Medicare in American history, and biggest cut to Obamacare in the 15 years that the program has existed. So I think it's, before getting to the 3 things people might not be aware of, I think it is always worth reminding people the centerpiece of their economic agenda isn't bringing costs down. It was big tax breaks for billionaires paid for by hurting you and your health care. Now, a couple things in there that people might not be aware of or perhaps have forgotten. The largest cut to nutrition assistance programs in American history. That really disproportionately impacts kids, by the way. That kids and seniors are by far the biggest beneficiaries of those nutrition assistance programs. Of course, these came into existence back in the early 70s when you had, farm country conservative Republican senators banding together with George McGovern and other liberal Democrats to bring it into existence. The program,
Bob Dole.
Bob Dole.
Yeah.
So the program has had bipartisan support until recent times. The other thing that has not gotten, I talked about this on my town hall last night, responding to a question. I know that this issue has sort of receded from attention in recent months and recent years. That there were pretty draconian changes to the student loan repayment programs in the so-called big, beautiful bill or big, ugly law. They got rid of basically all of the student loan repayment programs that had made things more generous and easier for people in repayment. Basically, now there's the standard repayment program or one other. When that finally takes effect next July 1st, we're going to see a lot of people in repayment. We're talking about tens of millions of people in repayment, some of whom are already having a tough time given this economy with repayment. So this actually increases the odds of a default crisis when it comes to student loans. And no one is talking about this. I'm attempting to awaken people right now because it's a little early, but that's something to keep an eye on. So those are a couple things right there that we can't. And as Democrats, I know there's always a tendency to move on to the next thing. We've got to keep reminding people of the devastation that is the centerpiece of the Republican tax bill that passed a few months ago.
Amen. Albert, amen. Amen.
Just to close the loop on Democrats being united in the House, Democrats by nature love to complain, and Hakeem Jeffries gets some criticism from the left, not being aggressive enough, some with the moderate establishment being too aggressive. How would you assess Jeffries' performance in this?
Yeah. Well, as a wise man once said, I'm not a member of an organized political party. I'm a Democrat.
That was
but
Will
we're actually-
Rogers and James Carville, both of them.
But that said, we're actually, with all due respect to Will Rogers, we're pretty well organized and disciplined and united in this fight. I think Hakeem has done incredibly well. Look, one of the first people I met on the House floor my first day when I got here in January 2015 was a guy who was just only in his second term, and that was Hakeem Jeffries. And so we fast became friends. We talk a lot. As you can imagine, given my position as the lead Democrat on the budget committee and given his position, I think he has done fantastic throughout this. And let's not forget, if this had gone south on us, he had taken a real risk by leading us into this fight. So I think he deserves a tremendous amount of credit for how things are going. Certainly far too early to declare success, but I feel very good both substantively and politically about where we are in this.
Yeah, let me turn to another subject. Trump is sending all these forces into American cities, Washington, Memphis, Chicago. He's warned generals and officers at Quantico that the greatest threat we face is internal. Do you think that this is all a prelude to potentially declaring the Insurrection Act to affect the 2026 election?
I don't know, but some of the scenes that we're seeing on TV of what this administration is doing with sending troops and federalizing the National Guard from one state, sending it to another. I don't have strong enough language to describe the feeling that I have in the pit in my stomach just today. And I don't know if this has been verified, but I just saw on social media a Catholic priest who was simply engaging in protest, shot in the eye with a rubber bullet from one of the ICE officers at one of these protests. The videos that we've been seeing of the brutality some people have been subjected to, absolutely heinous. I got a text message the other night from a good friend of mine who's an MP from a very close European ally of ours. I happen to serve with this individual in the NATO Parliament, and simply said, "My God, what the hell is happening in the United States of America?" Some of these scenes we're used to seeing in other countries, but not the world's leading democracy. So this is very troubling. I don't know where exactly it's headed, but we all have to remain vigilant. And I do think, though, and of all the things, of all the threats, of all the people who have folded, big corporate power has been nowhere. They were the first to bend the knee. Big law firms bending the knee. Some major institutes of higher learning that have billion-dollar endowments, striking deals to bend the knee. Jimmy Kimmel, a late-night comic, was actually the first to really stand firm, and people rallied around him, viewership like never before, and forced this administration to back down. So it shows you that actually we can win this, that if enough people pay attention and band together and resist this craziness and this increasing authoritarianism, that we can combat it, that sometimes we're, as ordinary citizens, more powerful than perhaps people realize.
Just a couple more, then I'll back to James. You're right next door to New Jersey. Big gubernatorial contest. Is your House colleague and the Democratic candidate there, Mikey Sherrill, she in trouble?
I think Mikey Sherrill's going to win. There has been this trend in New Jersey that you guys would be aware of for the last several decades, which New Jersey, for whatever reason, is a notoriously difficult state to poll. I still remember when the final weekend before the 2004 campaign, Karl Rove sent George W. Bush to campaign in New Jersey, thinking they had a real chance there. And of course, they lost it. Now, I also remember 4 years ago when Phil Murphy polling showed was up by mid-teens and eked out a victory by low single digits. And we shockingly lost a state Senate race right over the river from me in South Jersey. So New Jersey has thrown us, all sorts of curveballs. So I don't take anything for granted. That said, I predict Mikey Sherrill wins. I think it'll be a high single-digit race. The fact that Chitterelli has run multiple times and seems to have some financial backing just based on the number of TV ads that I've been subjected to. By the way, I could become the most popular person in Philadelphia if I ever figured out a way to ban New Jersey political ads from our airwaves, especially during Eagles games. So I've been following it very closely. Mikey Sherrill is a good friend. I think that she will prevail, though.
Well, all right. Now, you just raised it. Now, as my former sparring partner, Robert Novak, said, here's the big question. The big question, will the Eagles repeat? And with no top 25 team on their schedule, can Notre Dame overcome those early defeats and make it to the playoffs?
Well, this is great. I feel like as I was as a kid, when I finally ate all my vegetables, I got to eat dessert. So here's now the dessert.
Here it is. Here we go.
So
really tough questions, I know.
I have to say, while the fourth quarter performance by the Eagles was really dispiriting. I don't know why Saquon Barkley isn't getting the ball enough. That said, though, and this is where, of course, NFL is different from college football. I think the Eagles are still going to win the division. I think they're going to be fine. At this exact point, or roughly this point a year ago, the Eagles were 2-2 and were really flailing, and then would just go on to have a tremendous rest of the season that carried through to the playoffs, and will be crushed the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. So it's a long season. I think the Eagles are going to be fine. I don't see another NFC team out there that can match the Eagles when they're fully clicking. Now, as far as Notre Dame, and a lifelong diehard fan, got to lose those two, as it turns out, to two top 5 opponents we lost to by a total of 4 points. I think when it comes playoff committee time in early December, those are going to look about as two of good losses as you can possibly have. We have to run the table. We have to do exactly what we did last year, and that was win 10 in a row. We're 3/10 of the way there. I think if Notre Dame finishes 10-2, end up making the playoff, and would probably be one of those teams that higher ranked teams would most fear playing.
No one is better able to join this conversation than James Carville.
Well, while you're having your Carvel's ice cream for dessert, let me ask you: do you think
you get a royalty on that?
former LSU pitcher Aaron Nola is going to be able to get a good 7 innings tonight? Yeah.
Yeah, the one Al, you didn't ask me the difficult one. That's about the Phillies who are down 2-0 now.
I saved you from that, Brendan.
James is tweaking me about the Phillies because I've tweaked him enough about Brian Kelly that it's only fair. Look, the Dodgers, unbelievable talent, that roster. The frustrating thing about the Phillies is Schwarber and Bryce Harper, unfortunately, have gone cold at the wrong moment. I will say, though, if they can just win one game in a best-of-5 series, I do think they could turn this around. But playing the Dodgers, especially out in L.A., I mean, that they got a real challenge on their hands.
Man, I watched that Yankee game last night, and the Aaron Judge home run that hit the fair pole was really a real special kind of playoff moment, I thought. I mean, and you got to feel them. Hey, maybe they were down, and this could ignite them, and that can happen in playoff baseball.
Yeah, I mean, look, 2004 when the Red Sox were down 3-0, one of their guys, I think it was Kevin Millar, said, "Listen, we just get one win, and things can turn around." And I mean, baseball is weird like that, especially a best-of-5 series.
So, before I let you go, I mean, I'm think that you and I have the sense that we got a good hand here.
I do.
Okay,
Yeah.
but we're both sports fans, and I used to play a lot of bridge. And the one thing I know, you can have the best team and you can have the best hand, and you can lose because you can misplay it. All right. And I just hope that when you're talking to the caucus, you're talking to different people, saying, "Look, we got an advantageous hand here. Let's just run the table because if we hang a high curveball, somebody could hit it." And I just hope that you're able to deliver that optimism tempered by, just because we're ahead now does not mean we're going to win at the end, but we should.
Yeah, look, I want to be clear. I don't think, especially after the last 9 months and after the last election, one thing I can assure you, I don't think any Democrats are suffering from overconfidence. So, but I will say that we were confident going into this, but also knowing that there's risk involved, but also feeling like we're in a position to take a calculated risk. This is a fight worth taking and worth having, both substantively and politically. And I think that any data that's come out over the last 8 days has only put the wind at our sails in this and encouraged us to keep pressing forward. Like I said, I feel good where we are, but that said, the game isn't over yet.
You're right. Thank you. I like that little caution here, because I don't, you can lose any game, but this one we shouldn't lose. I can't thank you enough for being on here. I do think that 18,000 people coming in on a Zoom town hall or whatever you have, I think it's indicative. I think I'm seeing things like this around the country that tells me the resistance is really stronger than.
I mean, all year, it's one thing if it's one special election, two special elections. The very first special election in this country this year was a state Senate race in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Al, Lancaster County, very conservative.
My brother lives there. I know.
They had only ever once elected a Democrat to the state Senate from Lancaster County, and it was for 1 year in the 1880s. Trump carried the district by 15 points last election. We won it. Every special election since then, from the Wisconsin State Supreme Court race, you go on, I think over 40 now, Democrats have averaged a 16-point overperformance. Something is going on that's real. So I believe there is reason, not for irrational exuberance, as Greenspan used to say, but I think there is reason for real optimism going into next year in the midterm elections.
Yeah, along those lines, I mean, we both think we're going to win Virginia and not even close, okay, by a lot. But what I struggle with is, should I say that? I mean, not that people are going to say James Carville said that to be true, but just let them be shocked. They don't tell Trump. Trump does not know. They don't. But when Senator Schumer and Leader Jeffers went in to talk to him, he didn't know anything about what was in the big, beautiful bill in health care. He doesn't know anything. They don't tell him anything. And when he sees what's going to happen, he's going to freak out because he's not ready for it. I don't think. I really don't.
It is an interesting question on so many issues. Just how exactly does Trump get his information and who is shielding it from him? I mean, some of these things, like when he was talking about Portland, for example, he really seems to actually, now, I mean, the guy's an inveterate liar, so it is always a challenge to figure out when he's telling the truth versus when he's lying. But I have to say, I would not be surprised if it turns out he's being shown videos and really believes that all hell is breaking loose in Portland, when in fact nothing is going on there except for a dozen to 24, mostly older, mostly white protesters outside an ICE facility. That is a real challenge when you have someone, up in high castle, and it turns out there's only one or two gatekeepers who show him just what the hell is going on.
I'm glad you made that point. I think that's very, very important for people to know. Albert, go ahead.
There is no, as I said to start with, there's no one better on this big issue than Brendan Boyle. We'll see if he's as good on the NFL as he is on the budget in Congress. But I've been a long-time Eagles fan, so go Eagles. And Brendan, thank you so much for being with us. We'll stay in touch. How great are America's cool and clean sheets when you want to sleep your best, Mr. Carville?
Whew, man, I'll tell you, it's the thing that your body comes in most contact with, so you better, when you go to sleep, you want to have good underwear and good sheets.
That's for sure. Because, if you ever wake up sweaty, freezing, or just uncomfortable, just take it from James. The temperature in your bedroom can make or break your sleep. That's why you need to switch to Miracle-Made sheets. They're inspired by NASA technology and use silver-infused temperature-regulating fabric to help you sleep perfectly all night long. Sleeping at the right temperature is a critical way to feel rested the next day, and Miracle Sheets truly gives you maximum comfort in any weather. Better yet, they make pillowcases and comforters too. Plus, thanks to their antibacterial silver technology, Miracle Sheets require three times less laundry because they stay clean and fresh 3 times longer. It's great for your skin. Hidden bacteria can clog your pores and cause acne. So sleep clean with Miracle. Now, trust us, there's no more gross odors, as well as less laundry. Life is a whole lot better for your household. Join us in getting better sleep every night. Not only are Miracle Sheets smooth, breathable, and ridiculously comfortable, they don't have the steep price tag of other luxury brands. Miracle sheets feel nicer than bed sheets used by some 5-star hotels. So it's a vacation every time you get in bed. I imagine myself about 7 weeks ago in Paris, and that's what it feels like. It's your call. Drift off to dreamland and wake up at the perfect temperature every time you get into bed. Choose Miracle and upgrade your sleep or give the gift of better rest. Go to trymiracle.com/war room to try Miracle Made Sheets today. You'll save over 40%. And when you use promo code War Room, you'll get an extra 20% off plus a free 3-piece towel set. They make an amazing gift, and with a 30-day money-back guarantee, there's no risk. That's trymiracle.com/war room, code War Room at checkout. Thanks to Miracle Made for sponsoring this episode, and the link is in our show notes. James, Republican senators went berserk about revelations that special counsel Jack Smith looked at the phone records of 8 Republican lawmakers in his investigation of Donald Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election. First, he looked at their phone records. That's different than the charge that Josh Hawley's made that he tapped their phones. No, he didn't. But why did Smith seek those records? Of course, in probing what Trump did, it's important to know who he was consulting with, who he was working with. It was important to know, for instance, that Wisconsin Senator Ron Johnson was caught trying to send fake electors to Vice President Pence on January 6th. That's worth knowing. How much did Johnson consult with Trump? There was reported that others, take one, Lindsey Graham, little Lindsey. He's a South Carolina senator, but he called top officials in Georgia about changing votes in the state that Biden won. A grand jury there even recommended criminal charges be brought against Graham. The prosecutor declined. Fine, but looking at Graham's phone record was something any good prosecutor would do. Again, looking at phone records and who you called and when is much different than tapping one's phone. Intended as distraction from his Justice Department offenses, this all came out during that clown show hearing with Attorney General Pam Bondi, who stonewalled the entire hearing. One more point gleaned from this charade. I am against congressional term limits or age limits, but we should call out people who are too old to serve. The late Dianne Feinstein stayed too long. So now, D.C. Delegate Eleanor Holmes Norton, both Democrats, should retire. Let me add one more. The 92-year-old chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Charles Grassley of Iowa, is over the bend. You watched that hearing. He spent the whole time looking down at notes and questions prepared for him by a staff that's carrying. In national politics, Democrats have an age problem. So do Republicans.
One of the things that always, I don't understand is most people have the reaction of shame or they're embarrassed. We all do stupid things. We all say stupid things. Then a lot of times in our lives, we say, I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I said that. They don't have such a reflex.
Mm-hmm.
A Republican state lawmaker has filed a bill requiring all Florida public state universities and colleges to rename one roadway on their campuses after slain conservative activist Charlie Kirk. And if they don't, legislation proposes holding back state funds that go to these institutions. State Representative Kevin Steele, or Dade City, and you got to look at his picture because he looks just as goddamn stupid as he is, filed House Bill 113 in the Florida House on October 7th. There's no Senate companion yet. Steele was not admitted. If you don't name a street on a campus, we're going to cut off your state funds for Charlie Kirk. I don't even know how does that guy get up in the morning? I mean, at what connection to anything can you imagine a Florida State University? They become so immune to shame, and we become so accustomed to all the crazy things we do, we don't even notice how crazy this is. He doesn't even know how stupid he is. But that's just where we are. And I got news for you. It's all going to get worse. They're going to get crazier and crazier and goddamn crazier. And they're not going to know it. They're not going to realize it. This guy probably thinks on some level he's some kind of political genius. Jesus, man. These are some really stupid people.
You know, how great is a glass of wine when you can find the perfectly priced bottle online with Naked Wines, James, as a wine connoisseur?
Look, this is a outstanding product. I personally endorse it. These guys go out, they find wines at unbelievable prices, and they're can't tell you that if you get 6, all 6 are going to be great, but you're going to be batting about at least 4 or 6, which is you're batting 663, which ain't bad, and
Yeah.
it comes out to like not even $7 a bottle. And you're going to find stuff that you're really going to like. It's really good. It tastes like, honestly, some of this stuff can taste like $70 bottle of wine.
Well, some it is, but a much lower price because you hate to go to the store and being paralyzed by the wine options and prices. Now you get exactly what you want, and you can ditch those dilemmas at the store for good, all thanks to Naked Wines. This podcast is sponsored by Naked Wines. If you haven't heard, Naked Wines is a wine club that directly connects you to the world's best independent winemakers, so you can get world-class wine delivered straight to your door. Plus, you can use our code WARROOM for the code and password at nakedwines.com and get $100 off your first order. That's 6 bottles for just $39.99. Let me repeat that because you may wonder, is he really lost it? 6 bottles for $39.99. That's less than $7 a bottle. As soon as you show up with an amazing vintage from one of their unique and storied independent winemakers, you'll be an instant hit. By now, you know we both love wine, and there's nothing better than a nice glass after a long day with friends or family. Naked Wines will have the perfect bottle for any moment at great prices. Their bottles instantly take any meal to the next level. And thanks to Naked Wines, we can share an amazing cut of veal paired with a 2023 Arabella Merlot. It's a dinner to remember. So how do they do it? I mean, these prices seem extraordinary. Naked brings you amazing wine straight from the winery at up to 60% less than what you would pay in a store. By cutting those extra costs, like middlemen markups, winemakers can pass those savings on to you without skimping on quality. They've been around for over 15 years and back over 90 independent winemakers around the world to make the wine you love to drink. They put passion into every bottle, so you are literally making their business dreams come true. Now is the time to join the Naked Wines community. Head to nakedwines.com/warroom. Click Enter Voucher and put in our code WARROOM for both the code and password for $100 off your first order. That's $6, 6 bottles rather, for only $39.99. That includes shipping. That's $100 off your first 6 bottles at nakedwines.com/warroom. Again, nakedwines.com/warroom. Use the code and password WARROOM. 6 bottles of wine for $39.99. The link is in our show notes. James, now for one of our favorite segments, our listener questions. The hardest decision that I have to make every week, aided by the great Dan Max, is figuring out which ones not to use because they're all good. So I'm going to start off with Jim in Boise, Idaho, who asked, why hasn't the mainstream media done an investigative story about who these so-called federal agents really are? What do you think, James?
So federal agents and what that up in
I guess he's talking about the ICE agents and everything else.
well, I think they've done some kind of stories. I think that ICE is now. I read this. I don't. I think I read that it's the largest law enforcement agency in the federal government now.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't. But he brings up a good question. I don't know what the minimum qualifications to be an ICE agent is. I don't know if they're screened for prejudice or anything like that. Look at some of their actions, it doesn't seem like it. But yeah, I think God makes a good question. What's the process that you end up on the rooftop of an apartment building, excavating Americans out of their apartments? I don't know. It's a good question.
Yeah, Jim, I think you're right. I'm not so much interested in identifying a particular one, but what are the qualifications? How much have they lowered standards to get in? And the one thing I really want to know, what did Tom Homan do with that 50 grand that he took from FBI agents promising to deliver Trump contracts? Where is that money?
A man like that, he probably, gave it to some retired nuns.
Yeah. We can rule that one out.
In a grocery bag.
I'm going to.
They have no sense of shame.
Yeah.
I don't think that Tom Homan is embarrassed by the fact that it's public that he took a $50,000 sack of cash.
No.
Okay. I don't think these people have a normal human reaction to shame or being humiliated. I just don't.
No, they don't. All they say is, hey, I wasn't prosecuted. Guess why he wasn't prosecuted? James, I'm going to steal a question from New Orleans. I usually leave those to you. This is John, who asked, what do you think about Amy McGrath running for the Senate again for a third time? First of all, John, she ran for the House the first time, Senate second time. This is the third time. Very few people in American politics succeed on the third go-round. I think the late William Proxmire may have, but it is really rare. I am a fan of Amy McGrath. I think she's impressive. She's a decorated combat veteran. I'm not sure she's the best candidate to put up in Kentucky in a seat that it's going to be hard to win, but not impossible.
Well, I don't. I mean, I don't know if he can win a primary because I saw him at Saratoga, but I mean Dale Romans, who's a top tier horse trainer, who's as Kentucky as you can get, all right, is thinking about running as a Democrat, and a lot of that is going to depend on what the sitting governor of Kentucky, Andy Beshear, says or does. So I'm not even sure that if Amy McGrath runs, I'm not sure she can beat Dale in the primary because Dale's got a hell of a story to tell.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a real Kentucky story, and so she's got to think twice about it.
Yeah, I never thought she could beat McConnell, but I thought she was going to win that first race. Emily in Marshall, Texas, asked you, James, why is Trump so enamored with the tariffs? Is it because the revenue from tariffs is income without collecting taxes from those who are not paying their fair share, like his billionaire buddies?
That's a good question, Emily. And Marshall's fine town in East Texas. It's actually not very far from Shreveport, as I recall. I think that Trump gets something in his mind, and then people just tell him what he wants to hear. So they're saying, sir, you're raising revenue. You're not raising taxes on anyone. You're helping create domestic jobs. You're hurting foreign countries that are not like us. This is a win situation all the way around. I don't think someone has come in here and told him, so, well, the problem is a tariff increase is always going to be paid for by consumers, or you're going to reduce competition and the quality of goods is going to go down, or people are not going to, if you don't buy that, we don't buy their goods, they're not going to buy our goods and all of the complicated stuff. I don't think anyone tells him. And I think that what we were talking about with Congressman Boyle. I don't think that he has ever heard the other side of the argument on tariffs. In his mind, It raises trillions of dollars in revenue. It creates millions of American jobs, and it's all winning. And no one has the heart or the ability to tell him what the truth is. I really believe that.
Yeah. No, I
I
do
really
too.
believe that.
He
It's
wouldn't listen, if they did. Russ in Elizabethtown, Tennessee, asks when Trump talks about repealing the 22nd Amendment, which would allow him to seek a third term, that would also make Barack Obama eligible for another term. In the interest of the country, would Obama run? Who would win? First of all, it's not going to happen in either case. The amendment will not be repealed. Trump has been involved in 3 presidential elections. Twice he lost the popular vote. One time he barely won the popular vote. He never ran against a good candidate. Whether it's 16, 20, 24, or hypothetically 2028, Barack Obama would have beaten him like a drum.
there is a better chance in the 2028 election that Franklin Roosevelt runs for a 5th term than Trump runs for a 3rd term. That's about what the fucking odds.
And even where he is today, Franklin Roosevelt would beat him.
Yeah, right now, today, where Franklin Roosevelt, he's a better chance of winning a 5th term than Trump has a 3rd.
Right. No, I think that's right. John, one of our favorite in Gurnee, Illinois, he's one of our favorite correspondents, says, what can Democrats change when it comes to illegal immigration if they gain control of the government again? Staying with the same policies, the Biden policies, is just going to allow the Republicans to campaign off it again and kick Democrats' butt. Good point, James.
Albert, I have to say this. Biden listened to the Democratic left-wingers when he came in on this, and it was an utter disaster. Harris listened to the Democratic left-wingers when she ran for president in 2019 and 2020, and it was a disaster. Don't listen to these people. They are wrong every time. Every time. And the one thing that anybody that's dealt with this issue, has looked at data, has been to focus groups, they know 2 things. People like immigrants. They just do. I'm sorry. Don't miss it. Don't think people are anti-immigrant. They're not. What they are is anti-disorder. And I can understand that. And if we can do that, you can have a much more enlightened policy. If it's orderly, people will reward you for it. That's just where it is.
Totally. And let's not forget, during the Bush administration and during the Obama administration, Democrats had the upper hand, and their policies were quite simple. A tough border, really a tough border, and a pathway to citizenship for those here, particularly for the dreamers. That was a very popular position, and that's the one that they ought to have now.
Absolutely. It's not that, and any time they come in, be nice to them and don't listen to a word they have to say.
Right.
And they never, ever win elections outside of a plus 27 Democratic district.
Yeah. James, Kristen in Ashburn, Virginia, ask a really good question. Could the silver lining of Trump's speech to the flag officers at Quantico be that they saw for themselves he's crazy and they really need to question his command? I've just heard secondhand that it really went over badly with a number of those officers, as it should have been. I don't know what that means. I think there's probably a lot more unease than we're publicly aware of among flag officers. I think that I would look more for resignations than I would for anybody saying I won't obey an order, even though it's against the law or unconstitutional. But I think he's got much more problems in the military ranks, top military ranks, than is generally appreciated.
Yeah, look, let's just say you're a lieutenant general, you're a 3-star general, you're in the Africa Command of Southeast Asia, and you're told you have to go back to Northern Virginia. You have to go to Quantico. You got to pack everything. You got to take your command sergeant major with you. All right. They got to find you a place to stay. You have to sit in an auditorium with 799 of your other colleagues. and listen to a drunk sit up and call you fat, stupid, not trained. And then you listen to your commander-in-chief and some meandering, nonsensical, you couldn't make it up. And then you go and you're talking to your friends. I wonder why this didn't go over very well. Yeah, I mean, and when you just pick any flag officer in the United States military and just look at it, they'll come up in Wikipedia and they'll show you at each ribbon they have a fruit salad. That's what we used to call it. I don't know what they call it anymore. But these are really accomplished, highly trained warriors. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I mean, they go to every, in order to be like a general and admiral, you got to go to, you be commissioned, you go up, you get fitness reports, you got to make rank at every point, you got to go to the war colleges, you got to go to professional schools, you got to go to artillery school, you got to go to gunnery school, you got to go to leadership school. And this son of a bitch is coming here telling you that you're fat and stupid and you don't know your job. If I'm the commander, I'm a team. If it's a campaign team or an athletic team or the team we have here at the podcast, what you want to do is we do it good. We got it, man. We can do things. Let's up tempo here. We got it. He doesn't do that. That's not even fundamental leadership. They don't go to leadership school and you walk into your battalion. Then you say, we got the makings of being a really kick-ass battalion here. We're going to work on our gunnery, or we're going to work on close order drill. But we got the finest NCOs. We got the finest platoon commanders. We got the finest division commander. That's the way that you lead people. You don't sit there and tell people who've devoted their lives to being in a professional soldier, a sailor, airman, a marine, a guardsman, or whatever, anything else, that you fat and stupid and the people that you work under you are not worth a shit. It's insane. It's insane.
Yeah, it sure is. James, our final question is from Missoula, Montana.
Ooh.
Been there, a good town. Kathy wants to know, does calling one's representative do any good, or am I wasting my time?
I don't know if it's something cathartic. Just throwing a rock in a pond and watching the concentric circles, did it do any good? No, but it's worth doing it. And at least it gives you some view that I had something to say. I told some fucky that answered the phone what happened. One of my favorite political stories is my daughter's friend at Episcopal got a job. It's kind of complicated, but she answered the phone in Liz Cheney's office during all of the stuff. And somebody needs to write a book on the person that answers the phone of congressman, record all the calls and come in.
Well, let me add, James, I think normally I would probably tell Kathy, look, there are probably better uses of your time. But right now, you've got a Republican congressman. I would call every day and say, let's open the government and extend the ACA subsidies.
Right.
They're nervous about that. And, he's not going to change his vote because he's, whatever Trump tells him to do, he can't. But he can go to his caucus and say, something, my phone calls are overwhelmingly against what we're doing. So, Kathy, it is worth calling, particularly now. And then we'll go from there. Hey, we love these questions.
That is a great answer, Al, but that is a great answer, and everybody understand that. They're not going to change their mind, but they'll say, God damn. Yeah. Talk to their colleague and say, man, my fucking phone is ringing off the hook here. We got to do something. Yes. Great answer. Very wise.
Well, wisdom is the equivalent of age, and men.
Hair.
Anyway.
Yeah, for nothing. There was wisdom in that answer.
We love those questions. So please, if we didn't get to them this week, we didn't get to a whole bunch of them. Blame Dan Max. Don't blame me. And we'll try to get to them next week. So thank you very much.
This question's on. We say it. Yeah, everybody on every show that has questions always like, but they are the best part. And just so our questioners know, we don't rehearse them or anything. We
No.
try to. We think the best way to treat your question is spontaneously and off the cuff, and
that's right. Dan sends them to me, and what I do is I just check off about 7. James does 4, I do 3, and I check them off. I didn't read Kathy's questions, so I checked it off. I saw what the subject matter was, but James is right. Yeah. We love the questions.
A great answer.
And anyway,
so true.
Hey, thanks for listening to Politics War Room with James Carville. I'm Al Hunt. As always, send your questions for us by email to politicswarroom@gmail.com or tweet them for next week's show at Politicon. Following this episode, we'd really appreciate it if you check out the links to our sponsors, Smalls, Miracle Made, and Naked Wines in our episode show notes. We thank you for supporting them because when you do, it helps make this podcast happen. Now, to keep up with us, subscribe to Politics War Room on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And check out our Substack at politicswarroom.com. James and I are constantly adding new content, so go and take a look. You also can find other shows you might enjoy on the Politicon YouTube channel or when you search Politicon on your favorite podcast sites. Now remember, please rate the show with a 5-star review. We'll be back next week with another show as we continue our War Room planning.